For the longest time, we've been told that our personality is pretty much our career destiny, that to be successful, you have to be a certain type of person. But what if that's just not true? A huge new scientific review is challenging that whole idea, and honestly, what they found could completely change how you think about your career.
I mean, come on, we've all had that thought, right? That little voice that says, oh, I'm just not extroverted enough for that job, or I'm way too neurotic to be a good leader. It's this deep-seated fear that the traits we're born with are putting a hard ceiling on our potential. Well, today we're going to separate the myths from the facts. We're diving deep into a massive review that looked at 24 different studies to find out what really predicts our ability to get and keep a job. And let me tell you, the answer is probably not what you're expecting. Okay, so before we get into the findings, we need to get on the same page about a really key concept, something called perceived employability. Think about it. In today's job market, which is, constantly changing, your belief in your own ability to get hired is an incredibly important resource. It's that core confidence that fuels your job hunt, how happy you are in your career, and ultimately how successful you are. So the researchers basically set up this big showdown to see what really predicts that feeling of employability. It's a battle between who you are versus what you can build. In one corner, you have personality factors. We're talking about the famous Big Five traits like neuroticism or extroversion. You can think of these as the stable, built-in hardware you're born with. And in the other corner, you have psychological resources, things like self-efficacy, resilience, optimism. These are more like software that you can actually install, develop, and upgrade over time. So what makes these resources so darn powerful? Well, first, they're agentic, which is a fancy way of saying they give you a sense of control over your life. Second, and this is huge, they're developable. You can actually get better at them. And finally, they help you self-regulate, to adapt and adjust as you go. Unlike your fixed personality traits, these are skills you can actively work on. So after the researchers crunched all the numbers from all 24 of those studies, which one came out on top? Which one is the real driver of our perceived employability? Is it the fixed traits we're born with, or the resources we can build? The verdict was surprisingly clear. Let's start with psychological resources. The connection here was just incredibly strong. A staggering 89% of the tests across all of those studies found that resources like self-efficacy and resilience were positively, directly linked to higher employability. I mean, the evidence is just overwhelming. But then you look at the results for those stable personality factors, and wow, it's a total mess. Only 43% of the tests showed a positive link. Almost a third of them actually showed a negative link, and another third showed no link at all. The connection was weak, it was inconsistent, and frankly, just not very reliable. This map from the study pretty much tells the entire story visually. See that big yellow circle in the middle? That's perceived employability. Now look at the red circles. Those are the psychological resources. Notice how big they are, how close they are to the center. Now look at the blue ones, the personality traits. They're smaller, they're further away, the connections are weaker. The picture couldn't be clearer. Okay, so what in the world does this all mean for you? It means we really need a new way of thinking about our careers. One that's focused less on just assessing who we are and more on developing what we can do. It's time to start building your toolkit. Let's go back to that computer analogy, because it works perfectly here. The old model basically saw your personality as your computer's hardware. It's foundational, sure, but it's really, really hard to change. The new model, the one this research supports, sees psychological resources as your software. They are tools you can install, you can update, and you can use to tackle any challenge that comes your way. So this research gives us a brand new pathway to success. It's not that your personality is irrelevant. It kind of just sets the stage in the background, but it's the resources that are close by, the ones you build on that stage, like your resilience and proactivity, those are the real main actors. These are what directly fuel your confidence and your employability. So what software should you be trying to install in your own personal toolkit? Well, the research points to a few really key ones. Things like psychological capital, which is a mix of hope, optimism, and resilience. Self-efficacy, that's your core belief that you can succeed. Proactivity, and something called core self-evaluations, which is your fundamental sense of your own worth. These are the skills you can actively work on and improve. And hey, you don't just have to take my word for it. The researchers themselves summed it up perfectly. They recommend a major shift away from just assessing static traits and moving towards actually developing these critical resources.
This is a game changer for career counseling, for education, and for our own personal growth. So, all of this really leaves us with one final and I think much more powerful question. Maybe, just maybe, we've been asking the wrong thing this whole time. Instead of agonizing over, do I have the right personality for this job? Perhaps the better, more empowering question we should all be asking is, what skills, what resources, what software can I build to succeed?